The harsh truth. Silence is your only weapon if you are sitting there right now, scrolling through your phone and trying to draft the perfect text message to change her mind. You have already lost. You are operating under the massive delusion that logic can fix an emotional exit. It can't. You think that if you just find the right combination of words, or the most heart wrenching apology, she'll have a sudden epiphany and run back into your arms. But the reality is much colder. She doesn't want your words. She's already heard them. In fact, your words have become noise that she's learned to tune out. She isn't looking for a better explanation of who you were. She's looking for a reason to regret who she lost. That regret isn't born in a conversation. It's born in the deafening silence you leave behind. You have to understand the psychological playing field here. Right now, she holds all the cards because she can predict your every move. She expects the "I miss you" texts. She expects the late night calls and the desperate pleas for closure. When you fulfill those expectations, you are essentially telling her that her decision to leave was correct. You are proving that you are a man who can be discarded and still hang around like a safety net. This isn't about playing games or being petty. This is about psychological leverage. By staying silent, you stop being a predictable outcome and start becoming an unsolved mystery. You shift the power dynamic entirely because, for the first time, she doesn't know where she stands with you. True power is found in the ability to walk away and never look back. If you want her to actually feel the weight of her choice, you have to let her experience the full consequences of your absence. Most men are terrified of this because they think silence means being forgotten. It's actually the opposite. Silence is the only thing that creates the space for curiosity to grow. When you stop talking, you stop feeding her ego. You stop giving her the validation that she still owns a piece of your mind. You must become the man who is so secure in his own value that he doesn't need to explain it to anyone. You are no longer fighting for a seat at her table. You are busy building your own. 2. Phase 1. Kill your availability. The single biggest mistake you can make right now is trying to be understood. You feel this burning need to explain your side, to clear up misunderstandings, or to show her how much you've changed. Stop. Value is not a debate, and you cannot negotiate desire. The second you start arguing for your worth evaporates. Think about it. High-value things don't come with a sales pitch. They just exist, and people naturally want them. When you send that check-in text or ask for one last talk, you aren't showing strength or commitment. You are showing her that you can't stand the thought of being without her. You are effectively telling her that your emotional stability depends on her approval. To change how she sees you, you must create a brutal, immediate contrast. Up until this moment, you've likely been an open book, emotionally available, predictable, and always within reach. You need to kill that version of yourself instantly. You must vanish from her emotional radar completely. This doesn't mean you block her in a fit of rage or post revenge photos to get a reaction. Those are just loud ways of begging for attention. Real disappearance is quiet. It's when you stop liking her posts, stop watching her stories, and stop responding to the tiny breadcrumbs she might throw your way just to see if you're still on the hook. You are cutting off the supply of your attention, which is the very thing she used to take for granted. This is where you reclaim your mystery. When you become unavailable, you become a haunting presence in her mind. She'll start to wonder, is he mad? Is he over me? Has he found someone else? Those questions are the seeds of attraction. As long as she knows exactly where you are and how you feel, she has no reason to come back. But when you become a ghost, not out of spite, but out of a deep sense of self-respect, she is forced to sit with the reality of her decision. You are no longer the man who is waiting for her to choose him. You are the man who has already chosen himself. By making yourself scarce, you finally make yourself valuable. 3. Phase 2. The power of the void. Most men are absolutely terrified of distance. They view space as a black hole that will eventually swallow every memory of the relationship, leaving them forgotten forever. Because of this fear, they do the exact opposite of what actually works. They try to close the gap as fast as possible. They panic text, they show up at familiar places, or they accidentally interact with her digital life just to stay relevant. But here is the psychological reality you must swallow. She cannot miss you if you never actually leave. By constantly trying to bridge the distance, you are robbing her of the chance to feel the consequences of her own decision. You are making it too easy for her to move on because you're still providing the emotional safety net she relies on. To truly win, you must create a void, a total emotional vacuum where your energy used to be. This void is created through absolute, unwavering absence. It means you stop being a spectator in her life. You stop watching her stories the second she posts them. You stop double tapping her photos. You stop being the first person to view her updates. When you do these things, you're essentially telling her, I'm still here, waiting and watching. That is not attractive. It's predictable. You need to remove your presence so completely that the silence begins to echo in her daily routine. This isn't about being petty or trying to punish her for leaving. It is about a radical act of self preservation. When you vanish, you force her to confront the raw, unfiltered reality of a world where you no longer exist to validate her. As the days turn into weeks, that void will start to do the heavy lifting for you. Without your constant likes or messages, her mind will naturally begin to fill in the blanks. She will start to wonder why the man who used to be so present is now nowhere to be found. This uncertainty creates a psychological tension that she cannot resolve as long as you stay silent. If she throws out breadcrumbs, those low effort texts like, hey, or I saw this and thought of you, you must have the discipline to ignore them. These are often just ego checks to see if you're still under her thumb. By refusing to engage, you prove that your attention is no longer cheap. A man who hovers around the edges of her life is a man who is easily replaced and eventually ignored. But the man who disappears entirely, with his dignity intact, becomes a haunting, unforgettable figure in her mind. For phase 3, shatter her expectations when a woman decides to leave. She usually does so with a very specific script in her head. She expects you to fall apart. She expects the late night, I'm hurting texts, the social media posts about heartbreak, and the inevitable downward spiral. In her mind, your value is tied to how much you struggle without her. If you follow that script, you are simply confirming her decision to walk away. You are proving that you are a man who lacks the internal strength to stand on his own 2 feet. To get her back, or better yet, to outgrow her, you must flip that script entirely. You must shatter her expectations by doing the one thing she never thought you were capable of, rising higher than you ever were when she was by your side. This is where the real work begins. The secret formula isn't about fixing the relationship, because the relationship as it existed is dead. Instead, you must focus all that energy on fixing the man you became while you were in it. Somewhere along the line, you likely lost your edge. Maybe you stopped hitting the gym, maybe you let your career stall, or maybe you traded your personal mission for her constant approval. Now is the time to reclaim that masculine fire. You need to rebuild your body until you look in the mirror and barely recognize the man who got dumped. You need to dive into your work or your passion with an intensity that leaves no room for moping. You are rebuilding your standards and your life, not for her, but because you realize you settled for less than your potential. Growth is the ultimate psychological trigger because it creates an undeniable value gap. When she eventually looks back at you, and she will look, she shouldn't see the broken man she walked away from. She should see a version of you that seems completely out of her league. She should see a man who is so focused on his own path, his own fitness, and his own purpose that her return is no longer a desperate necessity for his survival. It becomes a choice. This shift in energy is magnetic. When you genuinely outgrow the need for her validation, your presence becomes twice as powerful. You aren't faking it for a social media post. You are living it. By becoming the man she thought you couldn't be without her, you force her to realize that she didn't just leave a partner, she left a man who was destined for greatness. Phase 4. Master the stillness. In the aftermath of a breakup, your internal world is usually a chaotic mess of noise and anxiety. You feel a desperate, frantic urge to do something, anything, to stop the bleeding. But you must understand that anxiety is incredibly loud, and in the world of high-stakes attraction, loudness is weakness. When she pulls away, your natural human instinct is to panic and chase, but you must resist that impulse with everything you have. This is where you master the art of stillness. Stillness isn't just about sitting on your hands, it is a profound form of emotional control disguised as indifference. While the rest of the world is reacting, exploding, and begging for attention, you remain a fixed point. You become the eye of the storm. By refusing to let her see you sweat, you become a psychological enigma. You become unpredictable, and the human mind is naturally, uncontrollably drawn to uncertainty. When you are still, you stop being a puppet that dances whenever she pulls a string. Throughout your relationship or the breakup process, she has likely learned exactly which buttons to push to get a reaction out of you. She might post something provocative accidentally, like an old photo, or send a vague, emotional text just to see if you'll jump. These are baits, designed to see if she still holds the remote control to your emotions. Every time you refuse to react, you reclaim a piece of your power. You aren't doing nothing, you are engaging in a massive internal realignment of your own strength. You are teaching your nervous system that you do not need her validation to be okay. In a world drowning in emotional noise, where everyone is oversharing and overreacting, the man who remains calm, unbothered, and silent stands out like a mountain. He becomes a challenge she can no longer easily solve, and a peak she is no longer sure she can climb. This stillness eventually creates a haunting effect. Because you aren't reacting, she has no data to work with. She doesn't know if you're heartbroken, moving on, or already with someone else. This lack of information is what keeps her up at night. Your silence becomes a mirror that reflects her own doubts and insecurities back at her. If you are reactive, you are easy to handle. You are just another ex who is struggling. But if you are still, you are a force of nature. You are demonstrating that your peace of mind is not for sale and cannot be shaken by her absence. This is the ultimate form of masculine grounding. By mastering your own stillness, you prove that you are the captain of your own soul, and that kind of quiet, unshakable confidence is the most magnetic thing on the planet. 6. Phase 5. Make her cross the gap. One of the most fatal errors a man can make is trying to close the gap the moment he senses distance. The second she pulls away, he feels the urge to run after her, to meet her halfway, or to throw a bridge across the canyon she just dug. You must understand this clearly. If she is the one who created the distance, she must be the one to bridge it. Period. When you rush to close that gap, you are sending a loud, clear message that you cannot exist without her presence. You are essentially telling her that your world is so small and your value is so low that you are willing to chase someone who has explicitly decided they don't want to be near you. That isn't love. It's a lack of self-respect, and it is the absolute death of attraction. To get her back, you have to let her feel the full, freezing weight of the space she chose to create. You need to let that silence sit between you like a physical wall. Let her experience what life is truly like without your support, your humor, your strength, and your attention. Many men fear that if they don't reach out, she'll simply keep walking. But think about it. If she was going to keep walking anyway, your begging wasn't going to stop her. It was only going to make her walk faster. By holding your position, you force her to confront her own decision. If she ever wants to see you again, she has to be the one to do the work. She has to earn her way back into your world. This is vital because if you make it easy for her to return, she will never value you. People only value what they have to work for, and if you simply hand your attention back to her the moment she whistles, you are teaching her that you are a low priority option. Let time do the heavy lifting for you. You don't need to send a closure talk, you don't need to explain your feelings, and you don't need to justify your silence. Your absence is the only explanation she needs. Silence doesn't just speak, it screams. It screams that you're a man of high standards. It screams that you are okay on your own. It screams that if she wants a place in your life, she has to cross the desert she created to get there. While she is dealing with that silence, you are busy building a life that is so vibrant and powerful that you might not even want her back by the time she reaches the other side. This shift in dynamic is everything. When you stop being the one who chases and start being the destination, you reclaim the lead. Make her cross the gap, because the man on the other side shouldn't be the one who is left. He should be the man who is found. 7. The final evolution, rebirth over revenge, the ultimate paradox of human psychology is that the moment you truly stop needing her to return is the exact moment she is most likely to come crawling back. It sounds like a contradiction, but it is a fundamental law of attraction. You cannot attract what you are still desperately chasing with your soul. This final phase isn't about some petty revenge or trying to make her feel bad. It is about a total, scorched earth rebirth of your identity. You see, most men spend the weeks following a breakup waiting. They are doing the work just so she sees it. They are going silent just so she notices. That isn't evolution. That's just a performance. A real rebirth happens when you stop performing for an audience of one and start building a kingdom for yourself. You have to reach a point where your self-worth is so disconnected from her opinion that her return wouldn't even change the temperature of your day. When she eventually reaches out, and if you have followed the steps of silence and stillness, she almost certainly will. She should not find the same man she walked away from. If she finds the same guy, she'll just leave for the same reasons. Instead, she should encounter a stranger. She should find a man who is more grounded in his purpose, more elevated in his status, and entirely independent of her emotional validation. You want her to feel a sense of identity shock. When she speaks to you, your voice should be calmer, your frame should be unshakable, and your energy should communicate that you have built a massive, powerful world in her absence. She shouldn't feel like she's coming home to a man who's been waiting for her. She should feel like a guest who has just been granted temporary access to a high-level life she no longer recognizes. This is the peak of masculine power, outgrowing the woman who underestimated you. There is nothing more magnetic and, frankly, more haunting to a woman than realizing the man she thought she had figured out has completely transcended her. When she left, she had you filed away in a specific box in her mind. By evolving, you shatter that box. You become a new man, and because you're new, she has to fall in love with you all over again from scratch. But this time, the power dynamic has shifted. You are no longer seeking her approval because you've found something better, your own respect. You've replaced the hole she left with a solid foundation of discipline, mission, and self-love. Ultimately, this journey ends when you realize that the goal was never actually her. The breakup was just the fuel you needed to burn away the weak parts of your character. You become so obsessed with your own growth, your own fitness, and your own future that the idea of getting her back starts to feel small compared to the man you are becoming. If she fits into your new world, she can stay as a guest, but she will never again be the architect of your happiness. You have moved from a state of survival to a state of total sovereignty. You aren't winning because she came back. You're winning because you became a man who doesn't need her to stay. That is the final evolution. The moment you realize you didn't just survive the loss, you used it to become undeniable.